I learned the smell of low tide the same week I learned the smell of panic. Salt, diesel, rotting kelp, and the chemical bite of fast food napkins shoved under my armpits to catch sweat, because the car heater was busted and the Pacific Northwest knows how to make cold feel personal. I was 8 months pregnant, parked behind an old cannery in Astoria, Oregon, engine off to save fuel, counting the seconds between kicks to prove my child was still choosing me. 12 hours earlier, I'd had a job, tech support at a warehouse that shipped things people forgot they ordered. 10 hours earlier, I'd had a room in a weekly motel with a carpet that remembered every stranger. 4 hours earlier, a manager with teeth too white to trust said, "Downsizing," and a clerk slid my deposit back like it was charity and not my money. By dusk, everything I owned fit into a Prius with a cracked windshield and a prayer wedged in the glove compartment. I was not always a woman who measured hope in quarter-tank increments. Once I was the girl in the second row taking notes in tidy bullet points, believing bullet points could stop bullets. Once I thought love was a timed release capsule, steady, dependable, designed by engineers who tested it on better women. Then Tyler left on a Thursday to get cigarettes, which is a cliche because it's efficient, and called 3 days later from Phoenix with a new plan that didn't have me in it. "You're strong," he said, like I'd asked for a compliment instead of a father for my child. He Venmo'd $40 and a thumbs-up emoji and blocked me by dinner. The baby turned as if refusing him in utero. In the cannery lot, gulls screamed like alarms. I pulled my coat over my belly and tried to become smaller than my needs. It didn't work. A fisherman's radio crackled through the fog, a storm system pushing in hard from the west. The ocean heaved. My car rocked. And beneath the noise came something worse than wind, the quiet arithmetic of what I could not afford. Gas, prenatal vitamins, the back due phone bill, the ultrasound tech's voice from last week. "She's measuring small, mama. Make sure you're eating enough." I smiled and nodded then. I tightened my belt now. I was about to close my eyes when headlights swept the lot and froze on me like a question. A pickup idled, then killed its engine. A woman climbed out in a yellow rain jacket, hood up, flashlight in her teeth, moving with the efficient disrespect of someone who's cold and done with it. She tapped my window with a knuckle like a teacher waking a student who'd fallen asleep at her desk. "You can't sleep here," she said. Then she looked again. "Or maybe you can." Her face softened. "There's a storm warning. The river floods." She jerked her chin toward a blue, peeling house, stilted on timbers at the far end of the pier. "I'm May. I've got soup. You look like soup could save you. Kindness hurts when you're not ready. It stings like disinfectant." I hesitated. The world trains us to distrust the hand that isn't transactional. Then another gust slapped the Prius sideways, and the baby kicked hard as if to vote. I nodded. May didn't ask for a history. She didn't ask for a promise. She just shouldered my duffel and said, "Let's go." Inside, the house smelled like cedar and cumin. A space heater clicked like a friendly insect. On the counter, a stack of mail addressed to May Sullivan sat under an iron anchor paperweight. She handed me a chipped bowl. Lentil soup, hot and thick, like the opposite of despair. "You'll take the couch," she said matter of fact, as if we did this every Tuesday. "There's a bathroom down the hall. I'll find you blankets." I ate like I'd been dared to live. My hand shook with the effort. May watched without commentary, then pointed at my belly. "What do you call her?" "Trouble," I said, because humor is armor. Or maybe Rowan. The name had been floating around my mind for months. A lifeboat I wasn't sure I deserved. "Rowan's a tree that doesn't break," May said. "Good choice." Lightning spidered the sky. The river answered with a dull boom against the pilings like a giant knocking politely. I held the bowl like a relic. The last time anyone had fed me without asking for anything first, I was 15, and my mother had made grilled cheese at midnight after I failed my driving test. She's gone now, left by a different storm. The memory hit like a wave and receded, leaving me salty and raw. "Sleep," May said. "Storm or no storm, morning insists." She clicked off the kitchen light. The house settled. The river breathed. I curled on the couch with my coat over me like a question only the next day could answer. For the first time in weeks, I slept without my shoes on. In the blue hour before dawn, I woke to the sound of water moving wrong, and the worst was still to come. My name is Eden. I am 28 years old, 8 months pregnant, and rebuilding myself with duct tape and other people's mercy. If you're here, if you're reading this in a bus station, in a break room that smells like burnt coffee, on a phone you share with 2 other humans, tell me where you are. Type your city, Your kitchen, your corner. Tell me if the light above your sink is buzzing. Tell me if your feet hurt. Tell me if your hope is hanging by a thread. And if so, what color? And please, subscribe. Not because algorithms deserve our loyalty, but because I am making a raft out of words, and I need as many of us on it as possible. Here's what else you should know before we go deeper. Tyler isn't my villain anymore. He's a symptom. My real antagonist is the system that spits out women who get pregnant and poor at the same time like we're defective parts. My other antagonist is the voice in my head that sounds disturbingly like every guidance counselor who ever warned me that one bad decision could sink a good life. Spoiler, it's never just one decision. It's an accumulation of little compliances. Sign here. Smile. Don't make trouble. Be grateful for crumbs. Clap for the men who eat cake. May's house was the opposite of crumbs. Everything in it had a job and a story. A calendar on the fridge with the tides circled in red. A photo of a teen boy with a lacrosse stick and a grin that had not yet met the world's precise cruelties. A shelf of library discard books about shipwrecks and saints. A letter from the county taped to the wall about flood insurance premiums. The number circled so many times the ink bled. May, I said in the morning, pointing at the boy's photo. Your son? Used to be, she said, piling pancakes on a plate like grief was a thing you could smother in butter. He lives with his dad across the river now. Court didn't love my shifts. She worked nights at the cannery, days as a bartender. Judges like 9 to 5. They don't like women who know how to keep a roof up by any means necessary. She shrugged in that way women do when they've saved themselves and been punished for it. While I ate, I checked my phone. 3 voicemails from a number I didn't recognize. I pressed play. A woman with a clipped voice mispronounced my last name and said, "This is Daria from Riverside Billing. We're following up on your recent visit." Recent visit? I hadn't been to a hospital since the ultrasound. Another voicemail. Ms. Adisa, please call us to verify your insurance details for your newborn's NICU stay. My heart switched hands. Newborn? NICU? I was still pregnant. I called back, throat tightening. There's a mistake, I said. I haven't delivered. Is this Eden Adisa? Birthday May 14th? She asked. Yes. Then our system shows a baby girl Adisa admitted at 0217 last night. Mother listed as Adisa, Eden. Transferred from Coastal EMS after roadside delivery. She read my address. The Weekly Motel. My brain sparked like a shorted wire. Somewhere, a baby with my name on her bracelet was breathing recycled air under a plastic hood. Somewhere, a file was writing a story about me that wasn't true. Identity mix-up, May said, already pulling on her rain jacket. Or a scam. The third voicemail pinged. A social worker this time. Ms. Adisa, I'm so glad you're safe. Your baby is stable. Please call. The room tilted. My hands went ice. We have to go, I said. At the hospital, the fluorescent lights had no mercy. The admitting clerk looked at my belly and then back at the screen. Weird, she said. You're here, pregnant, and also not. She flagged a supervisor, who flagged a nurse, who flagged risk management, which is a corner of the hospital where people sweat professionally. A woman with a laminated badge and a tone like a seatbelt asked me to verify my identity 6 ways. There's an infant in our NICU tagged girl Adisa, she said finally. But you're not her mother. Who is? I asked. The name is unknown female, no ID, she said. Found by EMS in a car on Pier Road. Witness reports say the woman screamed Eden repeatedly. She paused. Do you know anyone else named Eden? Names are keys. Sometimes they open the wrong door. I thought of the cannery lot, the fog, the storm. Of my car, empty now behind May's house. Of what the night swallows when it's hungry. Can I see the baby? I asked. Ridiculous even as I asked it. The risk lady shook her head in a way that meant, absolutely not. And I'm human, at the same time. We'll sort this out, she said. Meanwhile, you should be seen by OB. I should have gone to triage. Instead, I went to the bathroom and sobbed into paper towels until my face looked like a warning. When I came out, May was talking to a janitor who knew a nurse who dated an EMT who rode last night. The mother in the car, he said, was young, Spanish-speaking, no papers, panicked, kept saying Eden or Ayuden, help. My shame flushed my ears. I had heard my name in a cry that wasn't about me, and the system had filed me where a stranger should be. Go to OB, May said, steering me gently. Breathe, hydrate. Let the bureaucrats learn English and empathy. Her voice was smoke and steel. And we'll find her. If you're still with me, if your stomach just fell the way mine did, subscribe. Drop a comment with your city and the last time you watched a mistake turn into a trap. Because this is where the water gets higher, and I need to know you're standing with me on the same wet floor. And the worst was still to come. The OB resident was kind in the hurried way of people who are juggling 6 fires with 1 bucket. Blood pressure, fetal heart rate, ultrasound. My daughter flickered in grayscale, stubbornly alive. She's okay, the resident said. You're dehydrated and stressed, but you're okay. She offered a social worker. I almost laughed. I already have one, I said, thinking of the voicemails that belonged to a ghost. In the hallway, a woman about my age stood with a plastic hospital bracelet and eyes like a trapped bird. She held a phone at arm's length, trying to translate a form. Can I help? I asked. Inglés? Poco, she said, apologizing for the same thing this country steals and sells. We huddled over the page. Consent for a blood draw for the infant. Bebé mío, she whispered, pointing toward the NICU doors. No nombre. No papeles. Policía. She trailed off. The word immigration hung unsaid between us like a live wire. What's your name? I asked. Yara, she said. Her hands shook. I said Ayuden in the car. They wrote Eden. She laughed once. A dry sound. Now Bibi is yours. On paper. She is mine. In blood. The world tilted again. Paper versus blood. America's favorite custody battle. We did what women do when the state's machine grinds loud. We built a quieter, faster machine out of whispers and borrowed authority. May called the bartender where she worked nights. The bartender called her cousin at legal aid. The cousin texted a volunteer interpreter. The interpreter left work early and arrived with a tote bag full of forms and snacks. First rule, she said, unloading pens like ammunition. Never sign what you can't read. Second rule, get your name into every box that matters. Risk management balked until legal aid's number appeared on their caller ID. Then balking became, let's collaborate. A nurse smuggled Yara into a NICU viewing bay and tilted the bassinet so she could see the baby's face. The baby yawned like a small god. Alma, Yara whispered against the glass. Mi alma, my soul. The interpreter wrote the name on a sticky note and slapped it onto the risk lady's stack of papers like a flag on the moon. Meanwhile, my name had grown tentacles. The billing office wanted me to sign insurance assignments for a baby who wasn't mine. The clerk at Vital Records said, we can correct it later. The way people say, we can fix the dam after the flood. The social worker who'd left the voicemail appeared at my elbow looking both contrite and defensive. We're understaffed, she said. Systems fail. We do our best. I nodded because nurses walked by within earshot, and I didn't want collateral damage. Anger is a scalpel. Use it wrong and you cut the wrong organ. Outside, the river kept rising. The storm surge crept over the low lot at Pier Road and sloshed into the street drains with a gurgle that sounded like someone laughing at a joke I wasn't in on. Back at May's, a county letter waited, floodplain maps redrawn, premiums up 40%. They redraw lines like they're etch-a-sketches, May said, tossing the envelope onto the table where it lay like a dare. Meanwhile, we bail. That night, I couldn't sleep. The baby hiccuped in my belly. I hiccuped in my fear. I pictured Yara and Alma separated by plexiglass and protocols. Pictured Tyler and Phoenix sleeping with both dreams and air conditioning. Pictured May's son playing in a backyard that didn't smell like mold. The house creaked like a ship. I got up and made tea I couldn't afford to replace, and whispered to my daughter, I'll never let paper make a liar out of us. At 2:11 a.m., headlights burned a rectangle on the ceiling. A truck door slammed. Boots on the steps. A knock that learned to knock from men who like to be obeyed. May opened the door with a look I recognized from women who learned boundaries the hard way. 2 men in city jackets stood there with clipboards. We're here about an inspection, one said. A complaint was filed about substandard dwelling conditions. We need to enter. May smiled the way a wolf smiles. All politeness, all teeth. Do you have a warrant? She asked. We don't need one, the man said. We can enter under... You can enter when a judge with a pen says you can enter, she said. And even then, only if my house invites you. He shifted weight, tried on authority. Refusal will be noted. Then note this, she said, and closed the door. My heart lifted an inch in my chest. They left a notice. They always leave notices. Paper breeding paper, like mold with a printer. They're trying to push me off this pier 1 inspection at a time, May said, scrubbing fury into already clean dishes. And they won't even admit who they is. The next morning, I learned, at the Cannery Cafe, a developer's flyer curled on a bulletin board. Rising Side, luxury lofts at the river. The renderings showed yoga mats on a deck where May's porch currently breathed. The slogan, "Rise above the flood." I laughed so hard I scared a child. Legal aid filed emergency forms to correct the hospital record. Add Yara's name, remove mine. Risk management learned to pronounce Ayuden. The NICU nurses pinned a paper heart near Alma's bed with her name on it in blue. Now she's somebody, one said, and my throat hurt, because she was always somebody. We just hadn't convinced the computer yet. I still needed a job. Also diapers. Also a place that wasn't May's couch. I walked the docks and asked unfriendly doors for a chance. The bait shop offered 3 hours a night restocking. The laundromat offered graveyard shift cleaning, lint traps, and mopping floods from machines that cried like infants. I took both. Sleep is a hobby for women with health insurance. If you're still with me, say your city in the comments. Say your fight. Subscribe because the plot turns every 7 minutes in a life like this, and you're about to miss one, because the worst was still to come. Storm warnings chant, then storms speak. On the 5th night, the river stepped onto the road like a person who'd decided the sidewalk was beneath her. Sirens rehearsed. The laundromat flickered and died. I locked the doors and waded ankle-deep through the lot, shoes squelching, dignity optional. At May's, the house hummed like a nervous animal. She'd moved the photo albums to the highest shelf and wrapped the radio in a trash bag like a raincoat. At 9:14 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Outside. Need to talk. T. Tyler. I opened the door because addiction to hope is hard to kick. He stood under the eave in a windbreaker too thin for truth, hair plastered, face arranging itself into contrition like a man reading lines off a wet script. I heard you're in trouble, he said. Heard who? I asked. He glanced toward the street where a black SUV idled. Sleek, tinted suburban mafia. A friend, he said. Phoenix dried me out. I came back to help. A woman stepped out of the SUV, hair that cost rent, shoes that hated puddles. She introduced herself as Lane, spokesperson for Rising Side Development. She smiled with 32 perfect litigated teeth. We admire your resilience, she said to me like she was giving a TED Talk. We're offering relocation packages to tenants affected by the coming improvements. Your name came up as someone who could use a leg up. My name comes up when men want leverage, I said, hand on my belly as my daughter turned like a compass needle finding north. Tyler's eyes ping-ponged. They can get you a new place, he said softly, using the voice that used to unclench me. A safe one, close to services. I could visit, help. The river slapped the pilings hard enough to make the floorboards hum. May moved behind me like a small bodyguard made of iron filings. She doesn't live here, she said to Lane. You can't buy what isn't for sale just because a storm is handy. Lane's smile didn't move. Ms. Sullivan, your flood insurance is in arrears. Your inspection history is instructive. The city is concerned about safety. She pulled a folder from a waterproof case like a magician producing rabbits. Inside, photos of May's house at low tide, at high tide, with a tape measure pressed to the waterline. We'd like to partner with you to ensure a safe transition. Translation, May said. Get off the pier, or we'll drown you in paper before the river can. I should have stayed quiet. Pregnant, unemployed, on a borrowed couch. I didn't look like anyone's leverage, but something in me had ripened into refusal. You misfiled a newborn because someone said, Ayuden too fast, I told Lane. You think I'm going to trust your paperwork to know what safe means? Lane's eyes flicked. The mask slipped a millimeter. We didn't misfile the baby, she said. The hospital. You are the hospital's board donor. May cut in. You and your husband build towers and erase addresses. This is your favorite magic trick. A gust slammed rain sideways. Somewhere upriver, a transformer popped and the world hiccuped. The house went black. The SUV's headlights washed the porch in an interrogation white. In the sudden dark, my labor started. It wasn't dramatic at first, just a pull deep in my spine that said, stand up. Then another that said, decide. My body had a voice older than forms, older than men with clipboards, older than rivers. May, I whispered. She heard what I didn't say. Tyler, I said, turning. Leave. His face collapsed, then hardened. You always were ungrateful, he said. The SUV door slammed like a judge's gavel. They left twin wakes in the flooded street. Contractions came like weather reports you couldn't ignore. May timed them with the clock on her phone and a steady hand. "We can't drive," she said, peeking at the street, now the river's annex. "Ambulance?" I nodded. She called. 15 minutes, dispatch said. Or 30. Or longer. "Hold my eyes," May said, kneeling. "Breathe where mine breathe." I did. I rode the pain like a rodeo rider with something to prove to herself. Then the knock. Not the city. Not the developer. A series of gentle taps like rain learning to be a person. May opened the door an inch, ready to bite. Yara stood there, soaked, hair braided tight to her skull, hospital bracelet still on, interpreter at her shoulder panting, eyes flashing. "Hospital called," the interpreter gasped. "They fixed the papers. They thought you should know." Yara held up a tiny pink hat. "Alma," she said, beaming through the storm. "Me, Alma. Joy can float in any flood." It rose in the room and carried me an inch above my pain. "Your girl knows her name now," May said to Yara. "Come in. We're doing something old-fashioned." We did. With towels boiled and a flashlight wedged in a jar and a YouTube midwife I couldn't hear because the signal died, we birthed my daughter in the front room of a house developers had already drawn as a yoga deck. The paramedics arrived in time to catch the last push and say "good job," like witnesses at a minor miracle. My daughter slid into the world with a furious squawk and a grip like an affidavit. We named her Marin because the river insisted. As they wrapped Marin, another set of lights washed the windows, blue and red this time. A police cruiser, a city truck, a man from code enforcement in a poncho with authority stenciled on it. "We need to evacuate the pier," he shouted over the storm. "Immediate danger." He looked at the baby. "Congratulations," he added awkwardly, "but you have to go." May squared her shoulders. "To where?" she asked. He gestured vaguely inland. "Shelter at the high school." He handed her a paper. Always a paper. "You can't re-enter until inspection clears." We packed 3 bags in under a minute. Yara pressed the pink hat into my hand, then pointed to her own head like a transfer of luck. We stepped into water calf-deep and moving, the kind of water that will take your yes and your no in the same gulp. The paramedics carried Marin like the crown jewel she was. At the end of the pier, I turned and saw Lane's SUV idling at the corner, camera phone up, recording the evacuation. Proof for the next meeting. Unsafe, uninhabitable. Our concern is justified. I stared straight into the lens and lifted my chin. Record this too, I thought. The part where we left breathing. At the shelter, the gym smelled like bleach and fear. Cots lined up like sentences with no periods. Volunteers moved like angels who'd had practice. A nurse checked Marin's temperature and made a face that made my stomach drop. "She's borderline," the nurse said. "We'll keep her warm." She placed my baby against my chest and layered 3 blankets over us. "You're the best incubator," she said. "Skin to skin. You're the generator that never runs out." I stayed awake until morning because love gave me insomnia and rage gave me coffee. At 5:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. An email from Legal Aid. Subject, urgent. Provisional restraining order granted. Body. Judge approved temporary order blocking code enforcement from permanent red tag pending due process. Also, injunction filed against unlawful developer interference documented via video. Attachment. A still from Lane's footage. In the background, behind May's porch, a man in a city jacket accepted an envelope from a land acquisition rep. Time stamped. Bright as daylight. Caught. The river receded like a guest who'd found a better party. The sun came up slow and apologetic over a town that had learned to live with damp secrets. In the dull light, Rowan, Marin, squeaked, and I cried in that silent way that feels like breathing out a ghost. But the worst was still to come, and I realized I was no longer afraid of worst. I was busy. The inspector didn't get to red tag. The judge's order made sure the city had to follow its own rules even during storms, especially during storms. Legal Aid found a pro bono firm that smelled like old money and new outrage. They loved a righteous fight with good lighting. Someone leaked emails. Rising Side had been coordinating anonymous complaints to prime the pier for acquisition. The mayor got on TV with a tie that tried to look unbribed and said words like review and integrity process. Lane resigned to spend more time with family, which is corporate for exit before the stink sticks. May's house creaked like an old ship and then stood up straighter. Volunteers came with jacks and knowledge. We raised the stilt 6 inches, just enough to make the next high tide think twice. A carpenter named Jonah fixed the staircase for the price of a pie. The bartender organized a fundraiser that filled 2 pickle jars with small bills and big promises. The cannery added a shift, and May took it because rest will be legal in the kingdom of heaven. Not here. Yara and Alma moved into the apartment above the bakery, the one with the window box that grows cilantro even in November. The owner didn't usually rent to women on WIC, but the video of her hugging Alma in the NICU had already taught the town how to pronounce Ayuden, and influence is a funny thing when it's public. I watch Yara every Tuesday while she goes to her English class, and she watches Marin on Thursdays so I can nap like it's a religion. We trade soup recipes and survival hacks, and the names of men to avoid. Tyler texted twice more, then evaporated into the steam of his own excuses. I blocked him with a thumb that didn't tremble. The laundromat put me on days. The bait shop gave me the register because the owner realized I can do math even when men are talking. I started an online support group at midnight for women who cradle babies in lawsuits at the same time. It's called Paper and Blood. We post templates for letters. We list clinics that treat you like a person. We remind each other to drink water. We celebrate wins that look small to outsiders and feel like land to us. A month later, I met with a public health nurse who had a laugh like a saved life. She measured Marin's weight and clucked approvingly. "She's thriving," she said. "So are you." I didn't know what to do with praise that didn't come with a bill. I said thank you, and tried on the word thriving, like a dress from a friend's closet. It fit. The developer didn't vanish. They never do. They pivoted. They threw money at the food bank and called it community partnership. They offered a buyout package to May so generous it could have rebuilt her house inland with a porch big enough for regret. She read it, snorted, and used the envelope to catch bacon grease. "I like my view," she said. "I like my neighbors." The men in suits didn't understand a currency called belonging. Some days are still teeth, sharp, biting, dangerous if you aren't careful. The car refuses to start. Marin spikes a fever. An envelope arrives with a window that never means party invitations. On those days, I remember the cannery lot and the door that opened anyway. I remember that my worst night taught me which houses will take you in and which will take you down. I remember that I gave birth under a roof they drew as a luxury deck, and that my daughter's first breath rewrote a boundary no permit could approve. If you made it here with me, I need you. Subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Tell me where you're watching from. Your city, your storm, your peer. Tell me what paper tried to call you that wasn't your name, and what blood proved instead. Share this with the friend who thinks her signature is smaller than a developer's stamp. Tell her it isn't. Tell her we learned to read. Tell her we learned to say no in writing and yes to each other out loud. Here's the lesson I promised. Safety isn't the absence of danger. It's the presence of people. It's the woman in the yellow jacket who feeds you soup and refuses a warrant. It's the nurse who tells you your body is a generator. It's the interpreter who tapes a name next to a crib and makes the world say it right. It's the judge who signs a stay at 5 a.m. because your porch is a person. It's the way a house on stilts can learn to stand higher when the river threatens. It's the way we choose each other when paper forgets how to spell mercy. Marin is asleep against my chest right now, breath warm and insistent, fist curled like punctuation. The tide chart on May's fridge says the river will swell at 2:43 a.m. I've set an alarm to check the sandbags. I will pick up a mop if I have to. I will pick up a pen if I have to. I will pick up a friend if she falls. Was the worst still to come? Maybe. But now I know its face, its tactic, its tone. Now I know mine. You, reading this with tired eyes and a stubborn heart, come back tomorrow. Bring a name for something you refuse to lose. Bring a story about a door that opened. We'll pin it to the wall like a tide map. We'll learn the water together. We'll raise the house. We'll lift each other. And when the storm knocks, we'll answer in a chorus that makes the river change its mind.